Hi, my name's Wes, and this is going to be a video series about how blacksmithing and 3D printing has kind of changed the way I work and helped out a lot with the things that I make. So in this video, this is going to be my invention called the blade string. It's supposed to be kind of a cheeky name, like a G string, but for blades. And essentially what this is a 3D printed knife sheath, or really it's edge guard because it doesn't surround the entire blade. And this is meant for shipping blades so that it doesn't poke through boxes. You can also use it just for general storage. It's infinitely reusable. And I also actually use it for when I finish blades because it keeps your hand from getting cut, especially if you're trying to fit up a handle. And I find that it works very well. So I'll show you how this works and kind of how I came to this idea. So let me find a place to set down this box. So I've had to basically make two versions of the same idea. The reason being is that you have blades that have a point on the tip, and I can use that to create essentially 2 points of contact here. One part of this sheath retains the tip, and then the other part uses the natural taper of the blade, as seen through the silhouette of the blade, to tighten it onto the blade. So the way that it works is that you have this separate plastic piece and then a slider. The slider goes back and forth, and once you wrap it around at about this part where these little flex joints stop, you can put the blade in, put it in the tip where it's retained like that. Make sure the entire edge is in here, and then all you have to do is just press down, and then that completely captures the blade and puts enough friction on it that you could feasibly hang it, although most people have magnets anyways. But I think that this is a great solution if you want a very easy, cheap solution to, if you don't want to make wood sayas for your kitchen knives, and if you want something just lightweight so you can store it in your chef roll. So that is the version that has, for blades that have a point. And I'll show you the original version of this knife sheath. You can see the scallops that allowed the blade to flex are a lot bigger, so it was more prone to breaking. And I didn't actually use hook and loop for the spacer, which limited the universality of this sheath. So I used to have it all printed so that you could measure the width of the blade and then print the spacer out that would slide on, so that way it would tighten about there. But this proved to be just too much for people to figure out, and rightfully so, because measuring the exact width right here is very hard to do if you don't have a pair of calipers. So instead, what I did here, I'll just carefully put that in my armpit, I use hook and loop. So this is just some cheap hook and loop strip that I got off Amazon. I cut them to length, and then the sliding portion, it has a hole where I can actually super glue this piece in. And I found that this works really well. As long as you wrap it around the blade, you can just slide it forward, take the blade out, slide it back, and it slides to the exact same place. And I think that this strap, it holds a little bit more of a force on it, rather than using something that's more rigid like the thick plastic. So the way that you kind of set these blades up, at these sheaths up at first, is by putting the tip in, putting it down there, making sure, you can slide it farther back than this, but ideally you have it just past where the scallops are. And then the soft side of the hook and loop touches the blade, so that way you're not likely to scratch it at all. You wrap it around, make sure everything's stuck together, and then you just slide it back, and that keeps it secured. So I ship all my blades standard with these, and I also sell them on Etsy too. So I haven't patented this idea because it's so simple that if a Chinese manufacturer sees this, they can create a mold for this in no time and just injection mold out a ton of these. So worst case scenario, I don't make any money off of these, and I just use them for myself, which I am completely fine with. That's the reason why I made these in the first place, was because I hate making sheaths, especially for kitchen knives. I'll still make sheaths for sheath knives and things like that, but because those actually make sense. But for something like kitchen knives, where the customer isn't really guaranteed to actually use that sheath constantly, I just don't feel like it was really worth the investment, and people don't want to buy blades if they don't have a sheath. Even kitchen knives, nobody wants to, well, most of what I sell anyways is at the state fair. So I sell it through my local blacksmith group, and if it doesn't have a sheath, then it's really hard for people to walk out with the knife at the state fair, because we have to wrap them up, as policy. So now this brings me to my second design, which is for nakiris, or knives that don't have a point. This also applies to bread knives. So this, my cat is here. What's up, Reggie? What are you doing? This is the second design that I created because I made this nakiri for myself a long time ago, and I was also experimenting with making the same type of sheaths for a nakiri. Now, you might be wondering, why can't I just use the previous design for a nakiri? The issue is that you don't have a point that can be contained, and also the width of all kinds of nakiris and Chinese cleavers vary so much that there's no way that I could make something that retains it on the front. So I still kind of kept the loop at the end. So instead what I did, I opted to create a rigid structure, so no scallops down it that allow it to contour to the edge profile. And instead what I opted to do is just create a solid version of this that has a curve that kind of approximates what you would see on most knives. And I found that it works quite well just for bread knives, for cleavers and things like that. So this is the same idea. Only difference is, rather than when you first fit it to the blade, rather than starting back here, you start a little bit before, maybe on the first third of the blade. That way you have the part where it creates tension more or less in the middle. This one's slightly past it, but that way the flex on either side, you don't have a ton of flex. If I put it back here, I'd have a ton of flex up front that could actually come off of the edge. If I put it up here, it could come off the heel. So that's what I found works best. Even with it back here, probably 2/3 of the way down from the end of the blade, I found that it doesn't really, you can't flex it enough to get it to slip off the edge here. So it's still safe. There's no way for you to accidentally cut yourself using this. So that's basically my idea. I started modeling in Tinkercad, and for the majority of it I could kind of get the idea across, but then I started using Fusion, and that helped a lot with creating this design. And the funny thing is that the lock part here was this is still the original part that was made in Tinkercad, because I did all the surfacing there and I just kept the profile exactly the same. So then I created this in Fusion to allow myself to make multiple lengths of the same item. So that is the first part of what I found useful for 3D printing. Oh, I should also just show you the colors. I mean, this isn't an exhaustive list of all the colors, but you know, you can do all kinds of stuff that can match up with the color of the blade, especially if I'm making a custom kitchen knife. I can choose a color that complements the handle color as well, which is not something that you can, you know, cheaply do with making a wooden saya. Which would cost up, you know, especially if you try to find something that the handle's made of. If you try to find dyed and stabilized Karelian birch that's big enough to make a saya out of, you're going to be paying a lot of money to make that. Of course, this isn't as elegant, and for some bladesmiths it has a cheap connotation, but for me, just from the utility aspect of it, I really like this. So you can have something like I guess a beige color, a tan color, translucent blue, rainbow primary color, bright pink, and clear or glow in the dark in some instances. I mean, basically anything, any color that they sell filament in, you can print this, and also switch up the color of the lock too to add a little bit of flair and variety. So, oh yeah, I should also show you how these look through the light. I mean, it's kind of cool to be able to see the infill through these printed pieces. I think that looks pretty cool. And also the glow in the dark one is really nice too. I don't have that on me, but the glow is very bright, especially if you put it in sunlight. So yeah, so that is the blade string, or the edge guard, however you want to call it. That's my idea, and I hope that you found it useful, and you can buy them. Eventually I might just share the file if it doesn't really take off, so we'll see. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll create another one about, I think I'll probably do my knife grinding one next.